Chapter 14. Shuriken and Chakra Control. Hiroshi-sensei gathered the students once more, signaling the end of the kunai, throwing exercise with a sharp clap of his hands. The students, their energy still high from the practice, quickly assembled in front of him, forming a semicircle. Kaizen, Kakashi, Eiko Shiro, and the others stood ready, their expressions a mix of determination and curiosity. "You all did well with the kunai throwing," Hiroshi began, his voice carrying easily across the dojo. "But now, we will move on to something a bit more challenging: shuriken throwing." He gestured towards a rack of shuriken behind him. These small, star-shaped weapons glinted under the dojo's lights, their multiple points looking both elegant and dangerous. Hiroshi picked one up, holding it between his fingers for the students to see. "Shuriken are more dangerous than kunai because of their design," Hiroshi explained, turning the shuriken slowly so everyone could see its edges. Each point can cut or pierce, making them effective tools in combat. However, this also means they require better accuracy and control. A poorly thrown shuriken can easily miss the target, or worse, injure someone unintentionally. The students leaned in, their eyes fixed on the weapon in Hiroshi's hand. The sensei's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the deadly potential of the shuriken. To throw a shuriken properly, you need to focus not just on the release, but on the entire motion, Hiroshi continued. Grip it lightly, but firmly, between your thumb and index finger. Keep your wrist loose but controlled, allowing for a quick snap as you release. The key is in the fluidity of your movements. Let your arm swing naturally from the shoulder, and as you reach the apex of your throw, flick your wrist sharply. This will give the shuriken the spin it needs to maintain a stable trajectory. Watch closely. Hiroshi turned towards the targets at the far end of the dojo. The backstop behind the targets ensured that any missed throws would not damage the walls or risk harming anyone nearby. He took a deep breath, centering himself, then moved with fluid grace. His arm extended, his wrist snapped, and the shuriken flew through the air with a faint whistle. It struck the target dead center, embedding itself deeply in the wood. Most of the students gasped in unison, clearly impressed. Hiroshi turned back to them, his expression serious but encouraging. "Now it's your turn. Remember, it's not just about strength, it's about precision, speed, and control." The students lined up, each taking a handful of shuriken from the rack. They approached the throwing line with varying degrees of confidence. Hiroshi watched closely, ready to offer guidance. The first few attempts were, predictably, a mix of successes and failures. Eiko stepped up first, her grip on the shuriken too tight. She threw it with more force than necessary, causing it to veer off course and miss the target entirely. She frowned, clearly frustrated, but Hiroshi quickly stepped in. "Loosen your grip a bit, Eiko. Let the shuriken flow out of your hand rather than forcing it," he advised. Shiro was next. His throw was more controlled, but he released too late, and the shuriken struck the edge of the target, barely sticking. He sighed, shaking his head. "Timing is crucial, Shiro. Try to release just as your wrist snaps forward," Hiroshi said, demonstrating the motion again. One by one, the students took their turns. Most of them missed the target completely or hit it with such poor aim that the shuriken didn't stick. The dojo echoed with the clatter of metal as shuriken hit the backstop or fell to the floor. Only Kakashi seemed to have a knack for it, likely a combination of his talent and previous training from his father. Among the practicing students was Kaizen who, like last time, used a different stance and technique from what Hiroshi demonstrated. Kaizen stepped in front of the target previously used by Hiroshi-sensei with calm confidence. Unlike his peers, he once again took a moment to feel the shuriken's weight, adjusting his grip as he mentally compared it to ones used in his previous life. After helping some of the students, Hiroshi turned to watch Kaizen's attempt, curious to see if he was skilled with shuriken as well. He noted Kaizen's unorthodox technique, and as well as his choice of target, but chose to remain silent, curious to see the result. With a swift, controlled motion, Kaizen released the shuriken. The star-shaped weapon flew through the air with a quiet whir, spinning rapidly as it closed the distance to the target. It embedded itself deeply in the center, splitting the previous mark made by Hiroshi himself. "What the hell? I could understand hitting the target or even the center, but splitting the mark I made." Hiroshi-sensei's eyes widened in disbelief at the result, whereas Kaizen didn't even react to his feat. He continued to throw shuriken one at a time with each hitting the center. In the meantime, Hiroshi had calmed himself once again as he continued assisting the other students. Once he was satisfied with their progress, Hiroshi signaled for the students to gather around him once more. Good work, everyone. Remember, accuracy will improve with time and practice. Now we move on to another fundamental skill, chakra control. The students listened intently as Hiroshi began to explain. Being accepted into class indicates that you already have a certain level of proficiency in chakra control. However, it is crucial that you thoroughly learn, understand, and master the fundamental concepts. Chakra control is essential for most Shinobi techniques. This morning, I briefly mentioned advanced exercises like water walking and tree climbing. While those are important and will be covered later, we need to start with the basics first. He held up a single leaf, its green surface catching the light. We will start with what Konoha calls the leaf concentration exercise. This might seem simple, but it's a critical step in learning how to control your chakra flow. Hiroshi demonstrated the exercise, placing the leaf on his forehead. Focus your chakra to this point, he instructed. Use just enough to hold the leaf in place without it falling. Too much chakra, and it will blow away; too little, and it will drop. The students watched as Hiroshi closed his eyes, his concentration evident. The leaf stayed firmly on his forehead, undisturbed. This exercise trains you to control the exact amount of chakra needed for a task. It's a foundational skill that will help with more advanced techniques later. Hiroshi then announced a competition. Let's see who can hold the leaf on their forehead the longest. This will give us a good idea of your starting point in chakra control. You will have a minute to become familiar with the exercise before I start the time. The students eagerly took their leaves and began practicing the exercise. The dojo was filled with the sound of deep concentration as they focused their chakra. Many struggled initially, the leaves either blowing away or dropping almost immediately, but they managed to gain a basic understanding before the timer started. Kaizen, however, seemed to excel effortlessly. He placed the leaf on his forehead, closed his eyes, and focused. The leaf remained in place, unwavering. All right, the timer is about to start. And begin. Once the timer began, an intense look of concentration could be seen on a majority of the students' faces. Kaizen had never opened his eyes or took the leaf off his head from the time it was given to him. He looked tranquil and unbothered by the events around him. Ryu, who had been somewhat overwhelmed by the intensity of the training earlier, struggled to keep his leaf in place for more than a few seconds before it fell. Ryu, you are out of the competition. You can move to the side and try again. Ryu groaned but didn't give up as he moved off to the side, his determination evident in his following attempts. Suki, who usually excelled in physical exercises, found this challenge particularly difficult. She managed to hold her leaf for about 15 seconds before the leaf fell. Suki, you're out of the competition. Shiro, his brow furrowed in concentration, managed to keep his leaf in place for about 20 seconds before it fluttered to the floor. Seeing this, Shiro sighed in frustration but quickly picked it up and moved off to the side to try again. Eiko, her face a mask of determination, held hers for 30 seconds. She let out a small cheer when she surpassed Shiro's time, but then lost focus, and her leaf slipped off. She laughed it off, though, encouraged by her improvement. The other students in the class had results varying between poor and acceptable until it was only Kakashi and Kaizen left remaining. Kakashi, with his innate talent and calm demeanor, approached the exercise with a quiet focus. Minutes passed, and his leaf remained steady, drawing impressed murmurs from the others. He maintained it for several minutes, showing a great level of control and concentration. Kakashi's face eventually began to contort as time pressed on, with his ability to keep the leaf on his forehead waning. In the end, his time was 5 minutes and 28 seconds. While his time was impressive, easily surpassing the previous students, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of irritation when he saw that Kaizen was still going strong. Hiroshi-sensei and the rest watched in astonishment as Kaizen maintained perfect control. 10 minutes passed, then 20, and still, the leaf remained. Finally, after 30 minutes, Hiroshi called an end to the exercise, noting Kaizen's remarkable performance. Well done, Kaizen, Hiroshi said, clearly impressed. You've shown exceptional control. This level of mastery is rare at your age. Kaizen opened his eyes and smiled modestly. Thank you, sensei. I guess I just have a knack for it. Hiroshi reflected on Kaizen's performance, pondering the reasons behind his natural talent. He considered the possibility of genetic inheritance, perhaps a bloodline trait, but he couldn't say for sure. Regardless of the reason, it was clear to Hiroshi that Kaizen was a prodigy in the making. He was beginning to wonder if there was anything Kaizen wasn't good at. I wonder what his chakra affinity would end up being, Hiroshi silently pondered before deciding the students had enough training for the day. Hiroshi gathered the students once more, his expression one of pride and encouragement. You've all done well today. Remember, mastering these basic skills is crucial for your development as Shinobi. Keep practicing, and you will improve. Yes, Sensei. As the session concluded and the students began to file out of the dojo, Kaizen chose to remain behind. He took the time to assist some of his classmates who had struggled with the exercises, offering tailored advice and encouragement. His friendly nature and sincere investment in their improvement created a positive atmosphere, strengthening bonds and building mutual respect among the group. Hiroshi watched this interaction with a sense of gratitude and admiration. The future of the Hidden Leaf Village was in good hands, and Hiroshi was proud to play a role in shaping it. Realizing he still had to prepare his report for the Hokage, Hiroshi took a final look at the few students who remained in the dojo before he quietly exited.